My name is Will Simpson. If you haven't attended one of these events before, I'm an event manager at Upwork, and we're joined today by Dan. Sorry, I'm going to butcher your name. Fragiadakis. Oh, got it
That was
wrong.
perfect.
Correct me.
That was perfect.
Fragiadakis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fragiadakis. Yep.
Fragiadakis. Good. And he's an Upwork product manager, and he's going to be walking us through this exciting new product update. So thank you so much for joining us, Dan. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me, and thanks to all of you who have joined.
All right, so today we're going to be covering the new boosted proposal product feature, as well as the available now badge. So let's go ahead and dive in with boosted proposals. So Dan, I'm excited for you to tell us about this new boosted proposal feature, as a common experience I hear from many independent professionals first starting out is how it can really be a challenge to get the ball rolling with client acquisition when they don't really have those 5-star client reviews and a bunch of testimonials saying, yeah, you're a rock star. So I think these new features that we're going to be discussing today are really going to help address this experience well. So why don't we start off with you telling us, what is this new boosted proposal feature?
Absolutely. So when you submit a proposal to a job, the client has their list of proposals in front of them, and the ability to boost your proposal is a way to pay additional connects on top of the base price of what it would cost to send a standard proposal. And if you have paid, an additional amount of connects that's large enough relative to what others have bid, it's a competition for these top 3 slots, which we'll go into a lot of detail soon. After this, you will have your proposal boosted to one of the 3 slots at the top of the client's stack of proposals. And the reason why this can be really beneficial is because we have no control as to, how much attention the client is willing and able to dedicate to reviewing proposals, right? Clients are people, they only have so much bandwidth. So even though, when you submit a proposal, there's no guarantee whether it's standard or boosted that the client will actually review it. But we think that by offering freelancers this ability to boost their proposals to the top, they can at least increase those chances that the client notices their proposal, which can be especially useful as you said, Will, if you are a new freelancer who doesn't have all of these, row decorators that you're a, top rated freelancer, for example. Those are some other ways to stand out, but being at the top is a great way to stand out.
Absolutely. To me, it sort of relates to when you do a Google search. How many of you go to the 4th page of Google search? I don't.
Exactly. It's very similar to that. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know from I work on the freelance side, and historically, when I first encountered Upwork, I actually worked on the client side. I was working for a company and hiring some freelancers. And when you have your regular day job and all your tasks to do, and one of those is, hey, also find some independent professionals, as you mentioned, it can be a lot of work. It can be, okay, I only have enough bandwidth to look at the first 2 pages of what's going on. So if you're on that first page, I know that I would notice that person and check out what they have before I get burnt out looking at the 60th profile, right?
Exactly. But it's a product for these new freelancers, but also existing freelancers, right? I mean, if you have all of these decorators and all of that, but you are very interested in this job and you really want to increase your chances of being noticed, but also to signal to the client that you are extremely interested in this job, it's another way. I mean, you could imagine a client seeing in a boosted slot some freelancers who are top rated, who may not have needed to boost their proposal, but the fact that they did, is a way for them to show, hey, I'm really interested in this job.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive a little bit deeper. We're going to be going in more detail later in the presentation, but how can we leverage these tools for success? I'd like to start with understanding what are some of the main benefits of utilizing the boosted proposal system. We talked about, a little bit of visibility being one, but let's dive a little bit deeper on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. It's a way to decide to reveal some sort of intensity with which you actually want to be, considered for these jobs. I mean, right now there's sort of like a binary way to let clients and to let Upwork know that you're interested in a job or not, either by applying or not. But your interest is and desire to be noticed. It's more of a gray area. I think it's more of a spectrum. So deciding how much you are interested in this job and how much you really want to boost your chances of being noticed can let you effectively bid different amounts in these, different competitions for boosting your proposal across jobs. So each job has its own auction. It really is an auction for these top 3 slots, and whether or not you will be in a boosted slot is determined on, based on if you've bid enough in these auctions relative to the other bidders for that specific job. So really, it's a tool that freelancers have to decide to, spend more on a job that they are more interested in and want to boost their chances. So really, it's exactly what you have on the slide. It increases client reach, improves your chances of getting noticed. And when would you want to increase your chances of getting noticed? It's on the jobs you really want. And yes, it is quick, easy, and effective.
Yeah. And I know, having been on the client side, I am much more keen to work with someone that is passionate about working with me on my specific project, rather than perhaps, someone that's passively interested. Yeah, maybe I'd like to join you. I want the person who is hungry for it, that's going to reach deep and bring that creativity to the project. And this is a great way of showcasing it. Yes, I have that, and I want to give it.
Well, that's the great thing about the feature, is that not all clients are like that. I'm also like that. I want to work with someone who wants to work with me. I want to, date someone or marry someone who's also interested in me, things like that.
Yeah.
But I think, so what's great is that if you are such a client, you can put a lot of attention onto those boosted freelancers. But if you really, are pessimistic about it and you think, I don't want someone who paid extra, and, I would rather just go with the organic results that Upwork is providing me, you can just, scroll past those top 3 freelancers and then see the, the other freelancers, that Upwork recommends in those proposals. So it's very similar to that Google search example you said, right? The top couple of results are the ads, and then underneath are the organic results. So it works for everyone. Some folks just click on the ad. Other folks, skip past the ads, but
and it goes to a point that I like to bring up in all of my presentations, which is, there are different types of clients for every type of independent professional. There is not one profile that everyone's shooting for. Hence why, one of the things that surprised me on the platform when I first started joining it as an independent professional on the freelancing side, was that I thought that I was competing against everyone else in this space, but you're really not. You're competing to match well with the client, as opposed to me. I'm in graphic design, so I'm not necessarily competing with all the other graphic designers. I'm trying to connect well with that person. So as you mentioned,
right.
Some people like, some people don't. So it's good to know that there's different options for different folks.
Right.
So
exactly.
let's dive a little bit into the nuts and bolts here. Can you walk us through how boosted proposals work from just a high level perspective? We will be doing some little video walkthroughs, everyone, so we'll get more into detail as we go.
Right. So first you do exactly these steps, right? First, you find a job that you're interested in applying to. You can only boost a proposal on a job that you are, sending a proposal to, right? It's like an add-on, do you want to upgrade, your seat on a flight kind of thing. So you have to, buy the ticket first and then decide if you want the upgrade kind of thing. So that's what this is. Once you've found that job, yes, you decide if you, value it enough to be boosted. Do you really want to, add some extra connects and for, and have a chance at being in one of these boosted slots. And your decision could depend on a lot of things. Maybe of course, your interest is one of those things, but it could also depend on how many other proposals have come in, right? So if this job is if it's still a new job, but there are a lot of people who have applied to this job, you may really think, okay, standing out is actually really important here. I see that there's 30 proposals already, submitted here. So if I submit a standard proposal, I may not be on that first page, right? And I might not be one of the top people on the first page. It's actually more likely that I'm not, right? So let me try to boost and really, when it really matters here. The point 3, when you bid, what I really like about our system is that when you submit your bid for boosting, and we'll go into the details of this later more, but you can bid, you can be comfortable bidding approximately sort of what you're willing to spend on boosting, in the sense that if I, boost with many connects and I'm actually the top, booster, but other freelancers don't actually spend as many connects as I do, or they don't boost to that same level, that same degree that I've boosted, and we all win these boosted slots. And we'll talk about what it means to win a slot, in a bit. But when you have these 3 freelancers who occupy these boosted slots at the end, we're going to see that these 3 freelancers all pay the same amount, and that amount is the minimum of those 3. So if the 3 auction winners have boosted with, 7 connects, 8 connects, and 50 connects, that person who bid 50 is not actually going to be charged 50. They'll be charged that minimum of those 3, which is 7 connects. So when you bid, you can bid pretty comfortably, right? You don't have to worry, oh my gosh, I really value this job a lot. I'm willing to put in 50 connects to be boosted here. You don't have to worry about, well, what if others are not willing to do that as well? Should I try to think about how they value it? No, you can be pretty comfortable setting a bid of 50 connects in that example. And then see auction results. What's really cool about this is that after you've submitted your proposal, you can go in and see with any cadence you want, whether or not your proposal is actually in one of those top 3. So in your set of submitted proposals, I think it's called the My Proposals page, something like that. You can see if your proposal is still boosted or not, right? And it's possible that it's not boosted because other people may have come in with higher bids than you. So
do you have the ability to change that after let's say that I've done my proposal, the job's been open for a day, I've done my proposal and I've boosted it, using 20 connects, let's say, but I'm like, you know what, I really want this job. It's a juicy looking job. Can I go in and change that currently? Or is once you've boosted it, it's been boosted?
So once you've boosted it, it's been boosted, but we definitely are exploring possible iterations to the feature. And some of those iterations include stuff like, allowing possible bid updating. There's some tricky stuff that comes with that. Of course, allowing bid updating is more complicated from, not just a user experience standpoint, but more so an engineering standpoint, a settlement logic standpoint. As you see, the rules that we have for how you're charged in the auction very much depend on, your bid amount, others' bids amount, whether or not you received engagement from the client. All these things will, the bells and whistles are actually somewhat complex. So if you, on top of that layer of complexity, allow a freelancer to input multiple bids for the same job, things can get complicated pretty quickly. So we're still sort of thinking about, if we were to do something like that, how would we go about it?
Absolutely.
So it's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Cool. And there's a good comment here that I just wanted to address. I know that there's some of the stuff, Aaron, that this gets a little bit complicated on the back end. This event is being recorded. We can go back and rewatch it. It builds upon the different factors here. So there's some great questions coming through. But one of the things that I wanted to address, that someone was saying, if everyone boosts their proposal, then how does anyone who did not get on the list? To clarify, there's only 3 that actually get boosted. Isn't that accurate? So if there's 60 people that applied to the job, 30 of them boosted it, only 3 of those are going to win a boosted slot. All the rest will be in the organic display using the existing logic based upon how good of a match you are, your skill tags, hundreds of other factors, I'm sure. But just wanted to clarify that just because you don't boost doesn't mean you won't make it on the list at all. There's only 3 boosted slots that we're competing for. So
correct.
Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page there.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification. Exactly. Yep, that's totally right.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next one here. So after we've done the bid, what does it look like? What happens? And we touched on this briefly, but let's take a look at this.
Right.
So what happens here, Dan?
Right. So after you bid, we basically we let the auction continue to run, right, and until as long as it's open. So it's you are allowed to, other freelancers, when they're submitting their proposals, can continue to boost them, and the option to boost is available until the auction closes. So when does the auction close? The auction closes either once 7 days pass, or when the client makes her first hire for that job, whichever of those comes first. So upon auction closure, now we have all the information available to determine who is charged what. So at auction closure, no new bids can be submitted for the auction. You can still, new freelancers can still apply organically. So if you find a job and boosting is not available, that just means the auction is closed. You can still submit a proposal. You just can't boost it anymore.
Okay.
And you'll still apply organically below. You will appear organically below, as you said. So when the auction closes and we have, at that point, no new bids are coming in, so the set of bids that we have are fixed, there will be 3 freelancers at the top who are boosted. These are the 3 freelancers with the highest bids in that auction for boosting. So as we kind of, briefly mentioned before, suppose those auction winners, right? Well, let's call those the auction winners, right? The 3 folks that are occupying those boosted slots once the auction is closed. So they're permanently set into those boosted slots now. So these auction winners all pay that connects bid of the third highest bid. In other words, the lowest winning bid, if you will. So, if those auction winners bid 10, 11, and 12, they will all pay 10 connects. Now, what happens? So that's pretty straightforward. What happens to the people who are not in those boosted slots at the end of the auction? So that's when things get tricky, right? Because you may have so if you're not one of those auction winners, suppose you had bid 7 connects, right? You didn't make it into the 10, 11, 12 category, right? You're a 7 connect bidder. Maybe you bid 7 connects, when 7 connects was not even enough to be boosted. So maybe, there were already bidders in there of 8, 9, and 10 or something, and you came across the job, you put 7 connects in. Well, you're not even boosted, not even for a second, right? Not even, in that case, you'll get your full connects back. So if you didn't even make it into the auction, don't worry, you will get your connects bid back. You'll still have to pay the standard base cost of applying to the job because your proposal is still shown to the client as a standard proposal. You will just get all of your auction connects back. What happens if you make it into that boosted slot, but you only make it for a couple hours or something, right? Maybe 7 connects is enough at the time that you submitted your proposal, but then a few other bids come in afterwards and they bump you out of those boosted slots. If you get bumped out of that boosted slot without having an eligible interaction from that client, and there are actually a bunch of things that constitute an eligible interaction, the client clicks on you and sends you a message, or engages with your proposal in a certain way. And all of this information is found on our site. If you look at the support article, there's something like 6 different ways, things that we consider eligible interactions. If the client does not engage with your proposal in those ways while you're boosted, right, and then you get bumped out of that boosted slot, you will actually receive your auction connects back as well. So, if the ad that it's effectively an advertisement, right? If your advertisement does not reach the client while you are in that boosted slot, and then you get bumped out, you're not charged any auction connects. If you did receive an eligible interaction while you were boosted, then what we do is we actually charge you your bid of 7 connects. So let's say you boost your proposal, you land a boosted slot, the client interacts with your proposal, then we say, okay, Will has been interacted with. Then later, when these high rollers come in and start bidding, say 20 connects, 30 connects, 40 connects to boost, if they do something like that, you're not charged 20 or 30 or 40 connects, right? Because you set 7 connects as your maximum willingness to be charged for this ad. So we're only going to charge you that 7 connects. So we will never charge you more than your willingness to pay, right?
That's good. Yeah.
So we think it's a really nice system in that way. And I think that covers all of the cases, right? Because you can either win the auction or you can not win. And if you don't win, you can either not make it at all.
Part of it, yeah.
Or, all those little sub cases and things like that. So it is a little bit complicated, but in the interest of time, we should probably proceed.
Yeah, and I think the videos will make it a bit more apparent as we walk through it. Yeah, so we've got those coming up.
And we actually, on our support article, I think I've spent a lot of time personally working with the folks in support to really try to make the explanation of boosted proposals super clear. I've done that with boosted proposals. I haven't done it with the Available Now badge. That's a lot easier to explain.
Yeah.
But boosted proposals, there's all these cases of what could happen to your proposal after you bid, and what happens with the client engagement and what happens with the auction closing. So
a lot of moving pieces.
A lot of moving pieces. Exactly. So, and I think we really do a very thorough and I hope clear job at explaining, those different charges and how they work on the site. So.
Perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I dropped in the chat, for those that didn't notice, I did drop the list of what an eligible interaction means, because I was not aware of what that full list was. So it's opening the proposal, messaging, archived, it's in there. Let me see if it's going to let us play this video here. Let me go ahead. Good thing I pivoted earlier. Mm-hmm. So this is, just move this over. Give me just 1 second here. All right, give me a little bit of grief. That's fine. Sorry, folks, this was a tech support issue I was getting earlier with it suddenly not liking my embedded videos. Just 1 second. All right, here we are. Let's back it up here. So why don't you walk us through this one, Dan? This is how to go ahead and activate this.
Yeah, perfect. So this looks like actually the I believe this is for the available now badge, turning on the badge. Yeah, this is turning on the badge. So let's talk about that one later. Let's get to the, yeah.
Is this the right one?
Let's see. I think this is also still turning on the badge. Probably, yeah, this is not the right one yet. This is definitely about the badge. So let's go. Boosting, yeah, this looks good. Yes,
all
this
right.
is
Sorry
the right
about
one.
that, folks.
No, this is great. This is perfect. So I found the job that I wanted. I clicked on submit a proposal. Now I see that the proposal costs exactly 2 connects to apply. That's the base price of the job. I scroll down, I fill in my cover letter. I think I type in something. This is my cover letter. And then, right, this is all just samples for illustrative purposes, right, for you guys. And then now I have this option to bid for one of these 3 boosted spaces at the top of the client's proposal list. And if I don't make it, you know, I'm refunded my extra connects. And this is a really nice video. Of course, I didn't click play here, but you should definitely watch that video. I could set my connects here. There's, you know, bid for one of the 3 boosted spaces. I type in 5 connects. I can either send for 5 or I can edit this and I can boost it for 3, for example. And then let's say I decide to send for 3 connects. Okay, I understand Upwork's policies. Now I submit, and now my proposal is submitted, and I should be taken to a screen here that confirms that. Yes, your proposal was submitted. And that's all you need to do as a freelancer. It's just very straightforward. I should have included a, now that I'm realizing it, part of the video where I go to my set of proposals and I can see that this proposal is boosted, but rest assured that that is a feature that we have. When you go into your proposals that you've sent as a freelancer, you know, for your various jobs, you will be able to see if the jobs that you boosted on, if you are still boosted at that time or not.
Right.
And then, yeah, and now let's go to the
Client view here.
Client view. Yeah, that one's a really quick video. It could have just been a screenshot, but this is the sample job. If you go to review proposals, there should be just one. It's the proposal we just boosted. So you don't see the full effect here of boosting your proposal because you don't see that I'm at the top of the list. But if other freelancers come in, they will be placed below me. So I have this boosted label with the lightning bolt here. And if other proposals come in after and they decide not to boost, they'll all appear below mine, right? And if other boosters come in, I could still potentially be boosted, or I may be bumped out of the slot, depending on if I'm one of the top 3 boosters or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's good. It shows you there. But I like also when we were showing the previous view down at the bottom when you're doing the proposal, it was very clear, hey, would you like to do the boosted? How many connects would you like to use? I found that interface to be very obvious and easy to track. So you're not accidentally boosting things without knowing it.
Yeah, there's a couple of
interface.
confirmations. Yeah, there's not a default amount that's boosted, you know, and then you have to, you know, the default is you're not going to be boosting your proposals. So we really make it hard for you to accidentally send more connects than you want on your proposal. Yeah.
That's good. Cool. All right, let me see if I can get back to our slides here. All right. All right. All right. Sorry about that tech issue, guys. It's always fun when we're live, eh? So enough of the boosted proposal. Let's go ahead and pivot to the next topic, which is the available now badge. I think a little bit easier to digest and understand without seeing it visually, but we will have a little video walkthrough as well. So let's start off. In many events I host, I get the question of how independent professionals can stand out to clients that are searching for talent in the spaces that they work. Now, you got to make sure that you have a well-curated profile, good proposals, and a portfolio. There's no escaping that. No matter how many boosts you do, no matter how available now you are, you still need to take care of these building blocks. However, it sounds like the available now badge is a great way to augment your visibility greatly. So why don't you talk us through a little bit about that, Dan? What is this available now badge?
Yeah, so it's something that you're effectively putting your connects where your mouth is, if you will. The phrase "put your money where your mouth is." You're doing that, spending some amount of connects per week. I think the current price is 6 connects per week to have this paid signal on your profile that says you are open to receiving, more invites, more work, more engagement, right? It's basically allowing you to credibly reveal to the client that, hey, you are actually hungry for work here, and hungrier than someone who's not willing to pay for it. That's sort of the key thing here. So, I'm a product manager at Upwork, as you said, Will, but my training is in economics, and one of the founding principles in economics is revealed preference, right? So the fact that I'm buying a badge and you're not buying it it allows me to reveal to the client that I actually value the badge more than you do, right? The fact that I'm willing to pay for it, but you're not. And this is useful to the client because now the client knows that I'm the one between you and I, for example, who places greater value on signaling that availability. And the client wants to know that because they want to know which freelancers to invite and who's more willing to accept their invitations, right? Another way to think about it is if we were to simply ask freelancers, do you want clients to invite you to jobs? Both of us would mark yes, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't really help the client very much. So this is a way for like you said, before, same with boosted proposals it's a product that actually brings value, we hope, to both clients and freelancers. It doesn't really work for only one of these groups of folks. It really only works if both the clients and freelancers sort of pick up on the signal that the freelancers are putting down with either of these features.
Absolutely. But I know a lot of the clients that I've worked with in the past, they each have their own pace. Sometimes I work with a client and they take 2 weeks to get back to my proposal, and then a week before the interview call. And other people, as soon as I hit send on the proposal, they're like, hey, can we jump on a video call? I need this done in like 20 minutes. So I think from then switching to a client perspective, if I got to get moving on this project, I need us to get this ball rolling immediately, I would have higher expectations of someone with the Available Now badge getting back to me quicker. So
right.
And maybe having that degree of understanding of, hey, we got to get this project going, as opposed to maybe my typical pace in freelancing is slow and easy, and I love it. And my clients are slow and easy, but different clients, different folks, different talent, So it all
Absolutely.
depends.
Absolutely. I mean, really what we're doing is we're just, again, providing another way for freelancers to separate themselves from each other, right? If I want to let the client know that, hey, I really am available to work now. So then that's really useful for clients who want work done now, right? Because if I'm a client and I open up, the freelancer search and I'm looking for a logo designer, I might see that the top 3 freelancers that Upwork is recommending to me in logo design don't have the badge, but then maybe the 4th freelancer does have it. So now I have an interesting decision on my hands. What do I value more? Do I value more those, one of those top 3 freelancers that Upwork is recommending, or am I willing to actually not invite, the best of the best of the best, that number 1 freelancer? Maybe I'll jump down to freelancer number 4, thinking that, okay, at least they are more available and they can, are more likely to respond quicker to me, things like that. Right, it's a trade-off. So that's the other nice thing is we're not forcing clients to only, invite people who are available now, right? If you don't have any sense of urgency and you want to ignore that badge altogether, you're free to do so. Yeah, exactly.
Now, in a lot of the other webinars around the topic of improving your profile, I speak to independent professionals about the importance of keeping your availability settings accurate. For those that are not familiar, on your sort of profile page, you should be able to see underneath your icon of your portfolio picture, you should be able to see availability in a given week. Are you available for 40 hours, 10 hours, whatever the case may be? For instance, if you're going on vacation for a couple of weeks and you're leaving the laptop at home, highly recommend you do take that recharge time. Make sure you update that profile to reflect that those hours are not currently available. So it seems like the availability badge is a way that we can take this client signifier to the next level, as opposed to just being like, typically I have about 20 hours free in my week. I've only got 3 projects at the time. So it seems like this is a way to really make it a lot more apparent and a lot more to the client's face.
Exactly. No, that's totally right. I mean, that's what's so great about the badge. It works, in the same way that electricity or water, works for us, right? Imagine if in order to have electricity, we just had to pay, I don't know, $1,000 a year or something like that, and then we would have unlimited electricity. Well, in that case, you would probably not be, you may not be as careful, right?
Right.
To turn your lights off when you go on vacation, right? Same thing with
Yeah.
water, right? I mean, I know people are, of course, very conscious of conserving water, but maybe you would take, extra long showers, right? If you weren't, if we didn't charge you, based on your usage of water. So this is really great for the client, right? Because the client, now when they see a freelancer who does have that available now badge, there's a greater chance that, okay, this freelancer probably actually, is around and they haven't gone on vacation. And, because we continue to charge you, each week that you have that badge on. Of course, there might be, we can't account for every possible thing, right? There's some folks who maybe have, enough wealth that they don't really think twice about the lights that they leave on in their house. And, okay, fine. These are some folks who just never turn off their lights. They don't care that they're, being charged for it. There might be some freelancers in that case as well. But, this is, again, sort of very, very early stages in the pricing of these products. And, there's ways to address these things, right? We could automatically turn off the badge every week, for example, and force you to buy it again as a freelancer. And this would sort of solve the vacation problem, right? If you go on vacation and you don't buy the badge again, that's
Yeah.
really good for the client, but it's kind of annoying for the freelancer, right? As a freelancer, now you have to like remember to go in and actually turn on your badge every week that you are in the office working or at home working and you're not on the beach. So, it's kind of like, it's sort of hard sometimes to actually optimize the design of these products, both for the client and the freelancer.
Yeah.
We try to do so as often as possible to create the best product, the best experience for all our users. But there definitely are some like inherent trade-offs, like with how you design things. In this case, the example of, is the default that the badge turns off after a while, or is the default that the badge is left on and you're continuing to
Yeah.
be,
There's so many variables, and
yeah,
we've got, as you said, not only clients but also talent of us on this event. The freelancers and independent professionals, and we're all around the globe, as we found out when we were just logging in. So
yeah,
there's so many different variables to account for. So it's
right.
good to know that it's an evolving process, new sort of initiatives. So we'll find out what works best and what doesn't, and continually evolve. But
Exactly.
useful here. I think why don't we jump in? We've got two videos that show how to turn it on and then what it looks like from the client view. I highly doubt that the embedded videos are going to be kind to me this time. So let me go ahead and get the proper video up. Here we are.
Yeah, this looks like the right one for the freelancer. So as a freelancer, I go into my profile settings. I decide that, and this is just my, private profile that I turned public for a second to make this video. And then, at the top, there's this little disclaimer saying, you haven't had profile views, so maybe reconsider if you want to turn this badge on or not. There's this, link explaining how it works that you can click, and the current price, right, is 6 connects per week. And you can set a price greater than that. And what that means is that if you say, set a price of 10 connects, we'll still charge you that 6 connect price. It just means that if then in the next week, when the price, if it goes up to 7 connects, then we will charge you that price. We won't automatically turn off your badge. So this is a way, that's stating your maximum. And then once you do that, you will actually have that grayed out available now. It will turn blue. I think I didn't actually turn it on.
We will show it in the
But
client view here in a
okay,
minute.
in the client view, we'll see it. That's right. Yep.
Something interesting here, which I don't know if this is available anywhere else on the platform from the freelance, but that you've had no profile views in the last 7 days. I don't know where anywhere else shows you if you've had any profile views. Is that something?
I'm not sure. I think that we are working on, it's either in the process of being launched or it's soon to be launched, but there is a new initiative that I just don't work. I'm not involved with it, so I don't know the specifics, but it will be providing you with information about your profile views. And I think we're going to try to tie it with statistics
Right,
related
the
to
my
stats.
stats
The
section
my stats,
probably.
yeah, related to, are your proposals getting noticed, when they're boosted versus when they're not boosted, things like that. So
Yeah,
you kind of can see if, buying the badge and also if boosting your proposals is working for you. So these stats are going to be, I think, much more readily available.
got it.
This here is just kind of a disclaimer to say, hey, folks haven't actually clicked on your profile. So of course the badge is also, it's kind of, in a way it's paradoxical, because like, where the point of buying the badge is to have folks click on your profile and check it out. But
Yeah,
we're just warning you that, maybe, you just haven't appeared in search queries recently.
right.
And so if you actually are not showing up in search results, then it's sort of would be like buying a billboard on a closed road. Like you could do it, but no one's
That's a
going to see it.
that's a great
So
point. It
yeah, so
underscores the importance of having those skill tags and specialized profiles and things we talk about in a lot of other webinars
yeah.
to show up on those searches. But interesting, I got a few people ping saying yes, these stats are available somewhat later during different
Okay,
sections. So
great. Thank
good
you. Thanks.
information. I just found that very interesting, so I wanted to call
Yeah,
it out.
yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
let's take a look at this from the client perspective.
Yeah.
So this is in, yeah, what we got here.
So Kenneth does not have the badge. Greg does not have the badge, but Aisha does have the badge. So you see that, you
Right.
can't miss it, right? That badge is just front and center, which is great. And it's attached to, I believe, all of her profiles. That's why I did that
That's
with the
cool.
mouse hovering over. So you just buy it once and then you get it on, for your different profiles. And yeah, that's basically all there is to it. It's super straightforward. So yeah, as we saw, it showed up in search results. We saw, these are the search results, and Aisha was available now. But then also when you click on her profile and it expands, the badge is still there. Yep.
Got it. And with the unlike the boosted proposals, this is not an auction system to be available now. It's simply, it costs a static amount of connects each month, currently set at 6 connects a month. It's not putting you at the top of the search, but it's letting people know you're available now. So it feels like these two different features actually sort of complement each other quite well in their approach, while having different variations off each side. But I just wanted to clarify that the
Yeah.
second one we're looking at here is not an auction system. The boosted proposal is an auction system. This one's just a static sort of, hey, I'm available.
Right. And it's 6 connects per week. Just wanted to correct you there. You said a
Oh,
month a couple of times, but that's
sorry.
no problem at all. Just wanted to clarify your clarification. But
Got it.
yeah, no, absolutely. That's totally right. I mean, boosted proposals is inherently different in that it's an auction, but this is not an auction. And it's also, I mean, it's different in so many other ways as well, right? Like boosted proposals, you are targeting a specific job, right, by a specific client when you are boosting, and it's a very active thing, right? You have to decide on this proposal that I'm submitting, do I want to boost it or not? And your target audience is one client, right? Like that's the only person who's going to see that you have boosted that proposal. The available now badge is very different. It's more, I mean, yes, you have to actively decide if you want to purchase the badge, but once you do that, it's a very passive process where you sit back, you do your work, you do all of your, your regular freelancing and whatnot, and the client finds you, right? And your target audience now is every client who's interested in freelancers, like yourself, that do whatever you do, logo design or something. So it's very different, right? It's, so I think these products, the nice thing about that is that it makes a lot of sense for some freelancers to use one of them or the other, but it also makes sense to use both, right? Like if you are actively applying to jobs, but also if you are, hoping for invites to roll in, and you actually want to sort of attack the market in those two ways, right? Send proposals, but also hope to be invited to jobs. Now we have a feature for both of those, product for both of those types of freelancers.
Yeah. Now, a few questions come to mind with this availability badge. If I am part of an agency, does the availability badge also apply to an agency, or is that maybe a future iteration of it?
That's a very good question. So I'm I'm not sure how the badge actually works for agencies. I don't know if it's unavailable to agencies, or if I believe it's not available at the moment for agencies to purchase, because it's sort of a tricky thing. Like, what does that mean? Does it mean that all of the freelancers in your agency
Right.
are available, and you get this, and you pay for a badge for each of them? I believe it's just at the individual freelancer level.
Cool.
For future iterations, right, we could think about doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, good question here. Now, let me see. We have a whole bunch of questions in the Q&A
Great.
section here.
Awesome.
Let's get to as many as we can.
Yeah.
Um, so for those of that who are asking, yes, the event is being recorded. I've posted the link in the chat a few times. I'll do so again before we close out. Don't worry. But yes, it's being recorded. A lot of questions on how long the auction phase is on the boosted proposals. So from when the job is, I'm the client, I've posted the jobs, how long is the auction from that moment?
Right. So the auction lasts either until the client makes the first hire for that job, or until 7 days passes. It's whichever of those two, markers comes first. So in other words, auctions will not last more than 7 days. We cap it at 7, but they could end much faster if the client hires in 2 days or 1 day or something.
Right. One of the things that stands out, and I think a lot of other people in the chat were making this sort of same connection, is I know historically when I'm on, on the freelancer side and I'm applying to jobs, oftentimes if there's over a certain number of proposals, or if it's been open for X amount of time, I typically would not apply to it because I'd be so low on the list potentially.
Right.
Using this new system, it seems like this is a good vehicle to take some of those jobs they've really been waiting for that right person to show up, and to really make yourself visible in those top 3 slots.
Yeah.
So rejuvenating it a bit.
Yeah, so there's 2 points there, right? So, and I'm really glad you brought those up, because I've thought a lot about this. If I'm a freelancer looking over jobs, there's 2 things that might deter me to applying to that job just in a standard, with a standard proposal, like, pre-boosted proposals altogether. And it's exactly those 2 things, right? Like, what might discourage me? Many proposals, right? If too many other freelancers have applied, that's not great, because I could go unnoticed. But also, if the job is, has been posted for quite some time, over a few days, maybe the client has very likely already reached out to some freelancers, they've responded to some proposals, they might have shortlisted some of them, and they already have a really good sense of who they're hiring. So boosted proposals right now, I think, helps work against that first point, in a sense, right? Like, if I see that there are many people who have applied to this job, boosting is a great way for me to still stand out and still be noticed. The thing that boosted proposals is not going to do, right? It's, no product is perfect, and we have to, again, we're always thinking about ways to, make our products, and our experience better for the user. What boosted proposals cannot do as of yet is, it cannot assure me that the client is still actively reviewing proposals on day 3 or day 4, right? And that I'm still actually really excited to hear from new applicants. So that's actually a really big problem. That's, I think, a very interesting one that I would love to think about and love to work on at some point, but it might be a separate sort of arm or lever than boosted proposals, right? It might be something like, a way for the client to say, like a badge for the client that says, still reviewing proposals, sort of like freelancers can buy available now badge. Maybe a client can, after day 1 or after day 2 can, buy something, a small thing that says, still reviewing applicants, so still apply, or something. I don't know. That's just, off the cuff, probably not a great idea for many reasons, but, just spitballing here. So I think that boosted proposals is great, but we're still not done, right? Like, there's so much more we want to do to make things better for the client and freelancer.
And a big part of that consideration, I'm sure, is while we want to provide vehicles for people that are eager to get more visibility, or whether it's on a specific job or in general, we still want to maintain a level of fairness and trust that's inherent to the default system for those that are not using these added systems. So finding that marker where you're giving the support for people that want it, while still maintaining absolute fairness and trust to the most amount of people that you can. It's a big topic.
Oh yeah.
You guys do a great job, and it's a continually moving marker that we're taking a pulse of. So it's respect there. A couple of questions are asking this in a variety of ways, but are we notified when we are receiving a return of connects? So remember on the bid, there's a few sections. If we're doing the boosted proposal, if we never make it on that list, it's going to return those connects that we boosted. Do we get a notification, or where do we go to see that information? Is it simply in the My Connects where you're managing it? I don't know what that looks like in its current form.
So I have not played around with it as much as I should have to really know definitively about how the notifications work. That might also depend on your settings as a freelancer. I don't know how much flexibility you have there, how many notifications you want to receive. But we do have a connect, you do have a connects history, right? So if you go into your connects history, you will see, and actually it's a little bit over like unnecessarily complicated in terms of how we do charge you. So it's actually a great question, but once you go into the connects history, if you see, for example, the job that you applied to and you boosted for, there's that initial charge that you have, like you sent your proposal in for, I don't know, 8 connects or something. And then I believe when the auction closes, we do something like along the lines of, we refund you your connects, your full auction bid, but then we charge you appropriately. So you might see a few plus and minus charges for even just one proposal for one job that you send. But all of them, if you add them up and net out the positives and the negatives and cancel, some of them cancel out. At the end of the day, you will be charged overall the correct amount, right? Based on that engagement from the client. Did you win the auction or not? Things like that. Yeah. So I hope the freelancers can bear with us as we try to improve the, just sort of the aesthetic of the Connects history page, but you should be able to see it in your Connects history. And when will those charges actually be, when will those refunds happen? They happen when the auction closes. So one of the things, right, so as we said, right, if you put your connects into a job and you bid, let's say you send a proposal for 10 connects, it could be that you don't actually get any refund until 7 days from that point, right? Because the job is open for 7 days at most. You will get a refund, at most after 7 days, but it's one of those things where, like it would be nicer if it comes earlier. Like we understand that, right? If you bid 10 connects and it's not enough to be boosted, so earlier on, we know that you actually will get, some auction connects refunded. It's just actually logistically very, challenging for us to do that and make that happen before the auction settles. So yeah, we know that it would be great to refund the connects earlier if possible, but at the moment it's just really tough for us to do that. So sure. Yeah, you have to wait almost 7 days. I mean, but the thing, once you start like applying to jobs and start getting refunds, if you apply to a job every day, let's say, and boost a proposal every day, then once that first cycle, there's a cycle. Once that refund comes in, that first refund on day 8 comes in, then day 9 you'll get a refund, day 10 you'll get a refund, and then it kind of doesn't matter, right? Because then every day you're boosting proposals, and every day you're getting some amount of refund, if any refund. So that 7-day delay is actually kind of, in a way, doesn't really matter once that 7 days pass, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I hope that can. Freelancers can be a little bit, rest assured from that a little bit, gain some comfort.
Absolutely. So there's a good question here from someone who has used this feature. What does it mean when you boost a proposal and then you get a boost outbid tag when you view your proposals on the proposal page? And I think you alluded to this earlier in the presentation.
Yes. So boost outbid it just simply means that your boost is not high enough to be in that top 3. It just means you are not the first, second, or third highest bidder. And it's possible that if there are already, 3 bidders for that job who have, let's say, sent in proposals for 10 connects, right? 10 total connects. So if that was a 2 connects job, I'm just, making up things here, then 8 connects of that 10 go to the auction, right? And the 2 is for the base price of that job. So those are auction bids of 8 connects. If you submit a proposal for that job and you only put in 5 connects, so 3 connects is your auction bid, it won't be enough to be boosted. So your boost will be outbid. So it's almost like you were outbid before you could even have a chance to be boosted. We are working on some iterations there because we think it's I don't love the fact that it's possible for you to send in a boost and or attempt to be boosted and not even, for any time whatsoever, potentially be boosted, right? Of course, if you bid enough, you will be boosted, but I would like to, modify the product if possible, that would allow you to maybe have some more information about what the current bids are, so you have an idea of how competitive this job is. What do I need to bid? I think that's one of the biggest shortcomings of the feature so far, is that you're going into it pretty blindly, and you kind of need some experience with, some trial and error with boosting on a bunch of jobs to understand, what kinds of aspects of jobs make them competitive, how much should I bid. It's something that we think freelancers can learn over time. Right? If you consistently bid only the minimum amount and you're consistently having boost outbid on all of your proposals, then you need to increase your bids a little bit, right? But it would be nice to know that on a job individual level and not have to spend a lot of time learning that with many proposals, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely. But again, this is new program, that a bit of growing pains and learning what'll work best. So I have no doubt it'll just continue to evolve over time.
Exactly.
And good question here, and I wanted to clarify, this is something that you addressed earlier. If the question is, if I spend more connects on the Available Now badge, does it impact my visibility from the client's perspective? For example, does my profile show up? I think what this person was referring to is on the Available Now badge, it's currently 6 connects a week, not a month, like I said earlier. 6 connects a week. But it's accounting for the fact that, hey, if you'd like to either roll this over to the following week, or if that price increases over time, I'm still willing to spend up to this amount. But if I change that number to 3,000, it won't have any difference than if I left it at 6.
Correct.
In my ranking or anything else, and it's still only going to charge me, even if I put in 3,000, it's only going to charge me currently 6, because that is the price per week. But I'm saying I'm willing to go up to that amount. So just to give some clarity on that topic.
Yeah. I mean, you basically answered the question exactly as how I would. So this isn't to say that it will always work this way, right? We may think about having the Available Now badge give you an improved position in the search results, for example, where these are, possible iterations in the future. But as of now, it really is just, the freelancers with or without the badge are ordered and placed in the same way when a query is made. I search for logo design and I see, first page of results, second page of results. Whether or not I have the badge does not change where I appear in those search results. It will only put the badge on me, right? So, we're thinking of a lot of possible iterations, possibly, adding a filter in search results. So if a client only is interested in Available Now freelancers, they can hit that filter and it will only, it will prioritize or only show those freelancers with the badge. That's something we're entertaining. So it sort of works like giving you an improved ranking in a way, right? Because you're cutting out all the folks without the badge. But yeah, there's just many ways to go about this, and we're really thinking, long and hard about all the different possible iterations and what would be the best to try next. So
yeah. Now there's a clarification. It's a good question I want to get to, but there's clarification on one of these comments. If you're bumped out of it, this is talking about the boosted proposals. So if you're bumped out of the top 3, do you move to slot 4? And so on as you get outbid, or do you just end up somewhere else on the list? And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is if I don't get one of the top 3 boosted slots, it then reverts purely to the organic search results of Upwork, which is, do your skill tags match? Do you have experience with these types of jobs? What is your JSS and your client ranking? Well, the hundreds of factors that go into how it organically displays you. But it's, if you get bumped out of the top 3, that doesn't mean you're 4th or 5th.
Correct.
It depends on the other factors. Do I have that right?
Yeah, you have that exactly right. And the other way to put it is, if you get bumped out of the top 3, then where you belong, where you will end up, is where you would be had you not boosted your proposal at all. Exactly. Had you not put any extra connects. That's totally right.
Cool. And then we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions here. Is the boosted proposal feature available for all freelancers or only top rated?
It's available for all freelancers, right? Which is actually really important to us, because we want to, help freelancers who are just starting on the platform, give them a voice, right? Give them a way to actually try to increase their odds of being noticed by that client. Yeah. So it's all freelancers.
Cool. I'm going to post some links in here before we run out of time. So in the chat, this first link is going to be for a recording of not only this webinar, this probably be uploaded in about 24 hours. It won't be available because this is live, but also a lot of other webinars we do on writing good proposals, how to make your overview and your profile shine, how to curate your portfolio. We interview absolute titans in different segments, industries, so it's really a wealth of knowledge. And especially if you're trying to upskill or you're just getting started and you're banging your head against the wall, or what should I do here? This is where you should go. This is gold. So bookmark that site, and then I'm going to give you one more link here. As we close out this event, as we have hit time, there is a feedback survey that will trigger as I close it. Your feedback really helps us dial in and curate the types of information that will help you the most. So if you have just a minute to give us that feedback, just like you hope the clients do when you close out those projects, that feedback's super important. So if you could take a minute, that would mean a lot to us. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan, and walking us through these topics here. We're really excited to see how these work out and appreciate you taking the time with us.
No, thank you so much for having me, Will, and thank you all for joining. Thank you for your excellent questions, and thank you so much for.
And for those, I know we didn't get to all the questions. There are a wealth of support articles in the Upwork support section. If you just type in boosted proposals, or if you type in available now badge, really good step-by-step, as well as this recording, because I know a little bit of it can be a bit confusing. So no worries there. But thank you so much for taking time to join us, everyone. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye now.